and today I'm going to talk about Audible, my experience with it in the last few months, and whether or not I think it's worth it. This video is not sponsored. I know a lot of people, it seems like every other video is like, this video is sponsored by Audible or whatever, but it's not. I've been hearing about Audible, of course, for years, and I've never been a huge audiobook person. Every once in a while, I might listen to an audiobook, but it's usually a classic, so I can find it just like through my library, or you can even find it through Libro or something on YouTube. So it just never made sense to pay for an audiobook when most of the time, the ones that I needed, I could find for free somewhere. But at the beginning of this year, I took a look at my reading goals for the year, and I have a massive TBR for this year. How am I gonna get all of these books read? And I started thinking, okay, maybe it's time to up my game with some audiobooks. At the beginning of the year, I looked at my TBR for the year at specific books that I thought, that one, maybe I could make that one be an audiobook. These are books that I already own the physical copy, or at least I have it on my Kindle, but I really wanted to maximize my reading time for the year. And that means I needed some audiobooks. So I took that list and I started searching on Audible which ones are available and like how much would they cost if I just bought them individually, and how much would it be if I did a subscription. So I came out with quite a lot of my TBR is available on audio. These are modern books, classics, books that I thought, oh, that's kind of a niche thing. It's maybe not popular enough that it would be available, but it actually was. So there were quite a lot of books that were available. I was pleasantly surprised. Now, that's not to say that every single one that's available that I like the narrator. You know, I'm so picky about the narrator. It can really ruin your enjoyment of a book so quickly if the narrator has like some sort of weird nasally tone, or if they're kind of monotone or something, their voice inflection just isn't good. Everybody has little different things that they prefer when they're listening to an audiobook. There was one narrator that I tried where he seemed to like mouth his words in a weird way. It just was very strange. And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't think I want to listen to that for 10 hours. So just because the book that I wanted was available didn't necessarily mean that I wanted that audiobook of it. But in the end, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. Like, let's try it. I've been hearing about Audible for years and years and years, and just thought, that's not really for me. But now I thought, okay, you know what? We're just gonna give it a try. So I signed up for the subscription to get 24 credits a year, and that is pretty pricey, but it comes out to about $10 per book. If you were buying a physical copy of a book and it was only $10, you would think, wow, that's a really good deal. So with Audible, you're buying the audiobook. I feel like $10 is a very reasonable price. So in February, I bit the bullet and paid the money. Good thing I had some rainy day money saved up because it does get a little pricey. One kind of strange thing I think about Audible is that your credits can expire. If I don't use up the rest of my credits and purchase something before February of next year, then that credit will expire and I've just lost my money. So I took that into consideration before I signed up for the membership, and I made sure that there would be something for me to buy, to make sure that I would be able to use all of those credits on books that I really want. But I got my 24 credits, and so far I have used 8 of those credits. The first one I listened to was Jane and the Ghosts of Netley by Stephanie Barron. For years, I have been meaning to continue with this series. I own most of the series. This is the 7th book in the series, and so finally, after years of saying, oh yeah, I need to read the rest of that series, now I'm finally really doing it. So at least Audible got me back on track with some of my series reading. I've also read Planet Narnia by Michael Ward, so that was one that I really, really enjoyed on audiobooks specifically. I really liked the narrator for this one. This one is narrated by Nigel Patterson, and he is just such an incredible voice actor. Like, I don't know what it is, but when he says things, it's just so clear in my mind what he's talking about. There's just something about the way that he shapes the sentence structure of what he's saying that really makes it make sense. I don't know what it is, but it speaks to me. And I'm currently in the middle of listening to The Law and the Lady by Wilkie Collins. This is narrated by a whole cast of characters. The main character is Amanda Friday, and she's the narrator of just the story parts, not the dialogue, you know? I don't always love a cast. Sometimes I feel like I wanted an audiobook, not a radio play, you know, or something. I don't know. Sometimes it just, this is not what I wanted from this experience, you know? But with this one, I really like it. So sometimes the cast of narrators does not work for me. I can't really explain why, I don't really know. But this one does. I think it's just so well done. And I just really like all of the different voice actors a lot. And I also think this type of story, it's like this mystery, kind of a thriller, I guess you could say. It just, the story structure really lends itself to this type of narration. So another cool thing about Audible is then you also, once you have your membership and you've got your subscription set up, then you also have access to the Plus catalog. So there's some that are just available for free and you don't have to spend one of your credits. So I have chosen several titles from the Plus catalog that I've downloaded. Haven't listened to them yet, but I did find a few that looked really interesting and that I might try out. So these are the titles that I have so far in my list on Audible. I have Little Women, just because, you know, Little Women, if I ever wanted to reread it, not this year probably, but I might reread it at some point on an audiobook. The Mystic School of Music Craft, The Midnight Orchestra, and The Camp Cacophony by Jessica Cowrie. I have no idea what those were about. Those were totally cover buys, although I didn't have to buy them because they were free, you know, with the Plus membership. Anyway, but those just look like so much fun. Then we have The Marvelous Land of Snurgs and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang Over the Moon. I have read the first Chitty Chitty Bang Bang book, but I had no clue that there were further books in that series. I didn't know that was a series. I thought it was a standalone. But apparently, there are many adventures with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I've also been meaning to reread Five Little Peppers and How They Grew, and then try to continue with the rest of the Five Little Peppers series. So I might just end up doing that on audiobook. That's not one for this year, but coming years, and I might use that. One of the ones that I do want to reread that was on my list for this year is Tolkien's Ordinary Virtues by Mark Eddy Smith. I own this book, I've read it before, and I determined that I wanted to reread it this year. So that will definitely be an audiobook. I have several more titles from the Jane Mystery series by Stephanie Barron, Jane and the Waterloo Map, and Jane and His Lordship's Legacy, Jane and the Bark of Frailty, and I've already listened to Jane and the Ghosts of Netley. One of the things I really love about the Jane series is that it mimics that old style of language that you would see in a Jane Austen novel. And hearing that spoken out loud is just so delightful. I love this narrator, and she just really brings these books to life. I kind of wish that I would just go back to the beginning of the series and read them all again on audiobook with this narrator, because it's so much better than just reading the regular books. And that is not something that I would say often. I also have several Charles Dickens that I want to reread this year. I've got David Copperfield, Bleak House, and I think Tale of Two Cities. Wait a minute, is that one on my... I don't think that one's on my TBR for this year, but that one might be for next year. One of the ones on my list for this year for my Tolkien and Lewis related goal for the year is Bandersnatch by Diana Pavlik Glyer. So I've already purchased the audiobook of this one using one of my credits, but I just haven't, I haven't listened to it yet. I think I've got that one in a few months. I've got every month laid out exactly what I'm supposed to be reading every month. So Bandersnatch is coming up soon. Interestingly, this one is narrated by Michael Ward, but he didn't narrate his own book, Planet Narnia. That was narrated by Nigel Patterson. So I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know. It's funny that he is a book narrator, but he didn't narrate his own book. I wonder how that works. Anyway, I'm super looking forward to that one. I also have a book about George MacDonald by Roland Hine. I can't remember if this was from the Plus catalog or if I was just like, I'm just gonna buy it because I love George MacDonald. But this is narrated by Jonathan Morozg. I'm not sure. But I listened to the sample and I really liked it. So that is probably not gonna be on my TBR for this year, but I wanted to save it up for later. I also purchased The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis. So after reading Planet Narnia, I got really interested in how C.S. Lewis was totally obsessed with medieval philosophies, and I was like, oh, I need to dive deeper down this rabbit hole. And so I purchased The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis. This is by Jason M. Baxter. So this is not on the TBR for this year, although I might just have to squeeze it in somewhere because it sounds so cool. And I also purchased The 7 Basic Plots by Christopher Booker. I have read, I think, just an article of his before talking about how every story in every culture, in every era that has ever been in the history of human people has the same basic plots. I actually was part of a writers group years, like, oh my gosh, 10 years ago or something. And we would give like little talks, you know, at our group. So we would take turns giving some sort of little inspirational speech about writing or something. And so one time I took that article that I had read of his talking about the 7 basic plots and gave a little speech about that. I still have those notes somewhere, my little speech that I did, but I have never actually read the full book of it. Like all I had was that snippet from some article and on some blog or something, or I don't even know where. So I was like, okay, it is finally time to, you know, get the real information, you know, get further information about this idea. Is very cool. Another one that's on my TBR for this year is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. And so I will definitely be listening to an audiobook of that one. So far, I have 22 titles that I have bought or have gotten from the Plus, collection that is free. I also have 19 titles on my wish list that I haven't quite decided yet. Like, do I want to listen to audiobook for this one or do I want to just read the actual thing? So one of those is Deeper Heaven by Christiana Hale. The subtitle is A Reader's Guide to C.S. Lewis's Ransom Trilogy. So this is the space trilogy, and it's just kind of going deeper into the mythology behind it and the different symbolism that Lewis uses. There just is so many layers in that space trilogy. And so I think I'd like to dive deeper into that. That's not on the TBR for this year though. So I'm like, maybe we'll just save it for another time. Not sure. The other one is another book by Michael Ward. So I read Planet Narnia, and then he has another book called C.S. Lewis, Christology and Cosmology. So it's kind of the same topic, but I'm not sure if this is different information or what. So I haven't purchased that one yet, but I thought about, maybe, that's a maybe. Then we have Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I own the entire trilogy and I just haven't read it yet. And I don't know what is like stopping me from picking it up, but I thought, well, maybe if I had the audiobook of it, then maybe I would actually read it. Same thing with Tiger's Dream by Colleen Houck. It's just a very long book. The audiobook is 23 hours, so that is a bit much. So I think I've been kind of intimidated with the size of this one, and that's why I haven't picked it up. But maybe if I listen to an audiobook, then it would seem more accessible. I also have on my wish list all of the books in the Roswell High series because I've been reading through Roswell High. I'm kind of thinking I probably won't purchase these as audiobooks. I've been really enjoying just reading them as physical copies, and I think I'll just stick with that. One of the considerations whenever I'm using one of my credits to purchase the audiobook is I'm thinking, is this something that I would come back to someday? Is this a book that I could potentially see, like if I liked it, would I go back and re-listen to the audiobook again? And the Roswell High, it doesn't have that factor. I'm probably never going to reread those again. So I kind of feel like I don't want to waste my credits purchasing those. I'll just read them as physical copies. I also have Wyatt North's biography of J.R.R. Tolkien. I think I have the physical copy of this one. I'll probably just end up reading the physical copy, but I thought, well, let me put the audiobook into my wish list just in case my plans change later on through the year once I get up to that point in my TBR. And then I also have Wyatt North and Christopher Gordon's biography of C.S. Lewis. So this is another one that is on my TBR for this year. I think it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the one. Because there's some, or maybe it was a different C.S. Lewis biography that was on my TBR. There's some biography that's on my TBR. I think it's this one. But again, I haven't decided with this one whether I want to read the physical copy or listen to the audiobook, so it's just sitting there in my wish list. We'll see what happens. One of the cute things about Audible is that they have these badges that you can earn the more that you listen. So in the last few months, I have earned 5 badges. So one of them is the 7-day stretch. That's what you get if you've completed at least 2 books in a single week. Another badge is the Dabbler, where you've listened to content in at least 2 different genres. I also have the High Noon badge, which means that you listen for at least an hour during lunchtime. And the Sampler badge, because I've listened to at least 10 samples to see whether or not I like it or not before I spend a credit buying it. And the Closer, you've listened to at least 1 complete book start to finish. So there's a ton of other cute little badges, I guess. That's kind of fun, just to be something for fun. I don't know. You also have a listening level. So far I have only achieved the level of newbie, and then I'll get to the novice level, and then you can get to professional, scholar, and master, depending on how many audiobook hours you have listened to. So that's kind of cool. You do have a lot of little extras that I feel like make it worth it. I kind of can't believe that I'm saying this. Like, I just never thought that I would be an Audible person, you know? But here I am, enjoying it and paying for it and just reading more than ever. So leave me a comment and let me know what is one of your favorite audiobooks that you've really enjoyed. I still have 16 credits left for this next year on Audible. What do you think I should spend my credits on? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.